Hey guys, Christy here from the Stamp Cycle, and welcome to another video for my YouTube channel and blog. Today we're going to be making this gorgeous watercolor thank you card. This thank you card features the Floral Statements stamp set from the 2017 Stampin' Up! Annual Catalog. This stamp set comes with two beautiful images that are really easy to watercolor, and they become the focal point of the card, so it makes it very easy to use the stamp set to make beautiful cards. So there's a thanks and a hello stamp set you see there, and they have the sentiment which is embedded in with these gorgeous floral images. So I'm going to be using my Misty tool today, and you saw me take out that mouse pad looking piece there. I got that off of Amazon. That thing is awesome if you have a Misty. It is kind of like a mouse pad, but the top of it is plastic. So if you get ink on it, you can easily wipe it up. So I'll link to that in the description of the video below. So I'm just taking that thanks stamp and I'm inking it up with some Versamark ink, and I'm going to stamp it down on a piece of watercolor paper. Then I'm going to cover that with some gold embossing powder by Wow. And then I'll heat set that with my heat tool. I did apply a lot of anti-static powder before stamping to make sure that the powder only stuck to the places that I want it to. To watercolor this image, I'm going to be using some Gansai Tambi Pearl Colors watercolor. These watercolors are gorgeous. They have the most beautiful pearlescent finish, and they look really great with metallic embossing folders. So I just take this out and I spray all 6 of the pans generously with some water, and I let that sit for a few minutes before I begin to use it to color in my image. So I've zoomed in here so that you can see how I paint this image. So what I do first is I pull a little bit of that watercolor paint and apply it onto a palette. This is a watercolor palette from Art Impressions, and I add a ton of water to that paint. This paint is very thick, so you really don't need a lot when you are painting your images. And I add a lot of water to it so that it makes it easier to work with because, like I said, this is very thick watercolor paint. So I just grab a little bit of the paint on my paintbrush and apply it directly onto the image here. I'm not doing a wet on wet technique. I'm just applying this watercolor ink directly to the watercolor paper and the image, and I'm just spreading it around. This is a number 4 paintbrush. This is from the silver paintbrush line, and what I'm doing is I'll first lay down an initial wash of color with the pink and the green, and then what you'll see me do is I'll bring in some of those additional colors. I'll bring in some of the blue to that green, and then some of that orangey fiery red to the pink, and this is going to give me a different color than what is provided there in the palette. And then I'll apply that directly over this first coat of paint that I've laid down, and that gives some depth and interest to these images that I'm coloring. You could just leave it with the one layer because this paint dries beautiful with that pearlescent finish to it. But I really wanted these to look maybe more realistic and really give it some interest. So that's why I mixed up some of my own colors and apply that over this first wash of paint. So now I'm just going to turn on some music and you can finish watching me paint. I did speed this up quite a bit, but it's still sort of long. So if you want to skip ahead, that's fine. If you want to continue watching me paint, I'll turn on some music and I'll catch you guys after the painting is done. Now that I've finished painting, I'm going to work on the rest of the card. I have the diagonal stripes background stamp from Stampin' Up. And again, I'm going to use my Misty to stamp this onto a piece of Whisper White cardstock. I'm going to show you a really cool trick for using background stamps with your Misty. I saw this on someone else's YouTube video. I'm sorry, I cannot think of who it was, but this is so awesome. I really struggle with background stamps like this and getting a really good crisp image, especially with this particular background stamp. So I'm just going to ink it up with Flirty Flamingo. I'm going to then put the piece of Whisper White directly onto this background stamp. I'm going to flip the bottom of my Misty over that background stamp and piece of paper, then flip it the right side up, and then just push the heck out of this stamp and get a really awesome crisp image. And as you can see, it gives you really great results. Usually this background stamp can be very blotchy for me, but by using my Misty and doing this kind of reverse flipping it process, I really get a nice striped background. So now I'm going to bring in some dies from Simon Says Stamp. These are double stitched rectangular dies, and I'm going to cut out the watercolor piece with the second largest, and then this piece of striped paper that we created with the largest stitched rectangle die. I also cut out a piece of vellum that I'm going to lay over that striped piece to kind of tone down those stripes. I really want the focal point to be this watercolor image that we did. So now I've just got some 3M foam mounting tape. I'm going to apply this generously onto the back of my watercolor piece here. Then I'm going to use my grid mat to adhere this watercolor piece to the vellum. Try to get that nice and centered in that piece of vellum. By using the foam tape, that's also going to help anchor this watercolor piece down. It did get warped in the process of watercoloring, especially doing that blue background around the image. The piece of watercolor paper was pretty warped even after die cutting it. So by using lots of this foam tape, that kind of flattens out that watercolor piece so that it lays nice on the front of the card. So I'm just going to adhere the striped piece onto a top folding A2 card base that's made out of thick Whisper White cardstock. I'm just going to glue that on with some Tombow multi-purpose glue. This stuff is great because it gives you a couple minutes of wiggle room so that you can get perfect placement of your layers. And then I'm going to take that same glue, apply it to the vellum only where the watercolor piece is, and then glue that to the front. So to add some finishing touches to this card, I did add some sparkling clear sequins from Pretty Pink Posh. This takes me forever to figure out the placement of sequins, so I cut quite a bit of that out. And excuse my little, what I call my wispies that you see in the screen there. My hair is out of control when I was making this video. But I just used some Ranger Multi-Medium Matte to glue down these sequins. That glue's clear and matte, so you cannot see the glue behind the sequins. And I really like the added bling that the sequins brought to this card and thought it really finished it off nicely. So that finishes my card for today. Thank you guys for joining me. If you have any questions, just head on over to my blog, www.thestampcycle.com, and all supplies will be listed over on my blog and also in the YouTube link below. So thank you guys for stopping by, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.